I think that's probably one that Orlando would love to have back. So I said the Orlando Magic aren't scared of the Detroit Pistons. I truly believe that. I don't think they're scared of this team. In the third quarter, you can't go almost 8 minutes without a basket. DeMarcus and Chandler Parsons, for that matter, are saying that this looks to be a fraudulent 8 seed in the Orlando Magic. And we've argued this all season long. They're much better than what their record would indicate.
This magic moment.
Now, this magic moment.
Three-point shot. Back in. The bank open.
Orlando rises.
Bain hoisting at the buzzer. He drills it.
Legends live.
It's a crack came down.
And the magic is real.
He's going to go for the win. Shot is up and he got it.
Strap in. It's showtime with RJ Saunders.
It is this magic moment right here on 1010XL Magic. RJ Saunders here with you. As always, we are glad that you guys are here along for the ride with us as we continue to break down this first round series matchup between the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. Wasn't the game 2 in which the Orlando Magic wanted. However, they do have an opportunity to take a 2-1 series advantage against the Detroit Pistons, as now the series does shift to Orlando and the Kia Center on this weekend. Let's see what Orlando is able to do. Now, if you are new to the channel, we do welcome you as always. And if you do have the time, we would ask for you to like this video. Also subscribe to the channel as we continue to follow this series game in and game out. And hopefully we can see a lot more from the Orlando Magic. Hopefully they can win this first round series and move on to round 2 of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now, the elephant in the room, maybe not the hugest elephant in the room. The third quarter is really what the name of the game was in this game 2 loss for the Orlando Magic, that historic 30-3 run that they suffered against the Detroit Pistons, right? But I also think that the main overall theme of this series is going to be knocking down shots for Orlando as well as for Detroit. Because if you've been keeping up with this series, if you've been writing and making notes during this series, I think it's evident that neither one of these teams are going to shoot over 50% from the field or over 40% from downtown. There's going to be a lot of fouls. This is going to be very ground and pound. This is going to be very physical. Each and every hit you're going to feel. So I think just the overall message is, when it comes to the offensive end, he who knocks down shots is going to win the game. Because in game 1, we saw early, Jalen Suggs is knocking down shots, Paulo Banchero knocking down turnaround fadeaway jumpers in the post. It really helped Orlando really get into that rhythm and flow defensively. And also because they were knocking down shots on the offensive end, you saw a lot of guys being able to move in space a lot more, really just kind of let themselves get loose, let everything happen. What did we see here in game 2? In this game 2 matchup, to me, I'll be honest with you, I thought the Orlando Magic came out rather tight. They weren't loose. I think a big reason for that may have been because they probably were of the belief system that, well, I won't say it like that. What I will say is I think that they probably saw blood in the water and they didn't take advantage. I think that's probably the thing about all this, especially when you're tied 46-46 going into halftime. I think that's probably one that Orlando would love to have back, right? I think Orlando would love to have this one back. Nothing's going to be easy in this series. I think it's going to be an absolute fun one. I think this is going to go 7. I just want to say that right now as we venture on into game 3. I think this is going to go the full 7 games. Because you are just seeing the absolute fight from both of these squads, especially on the defensive end. I think the difference between game 1 and game 2, and I kind of alluded to it, the Magic, again, were just a team, to me, that felt tight. 2 quarters in, you're tied 46-46. If anything, I think that this Orlando Magic team probably thought, listen, if we can kind of keep this within 5, keep this within 10, we'll be able to make a run here and be able to win this game and go up 2-0. And I think that if they would have went up 2-0 in this series, you make things very interesting going back to Orlando, right? I mean, listen, Detroit fans, in my opinion, I think they had to start wondering, especially going into the halftime break, why won't these guys go away, right? And you can't get this Orlando Magic team off of the floor. You can't run them off of the court. This is a team that, like we talked about in our last couple of videos, it's almost like you're looking in a mirror, because Orlando is a team that likes playing physical too, and they also have a couple of guys on the floor that can put the ball in the basket just as well as Cade Cunningham can, right? So if you're the Magic, I think the issue is, especially in that game too, because Detroit Pistons fans probably were thinking that, we can't get these guys off the floor. Maybe there were a couple of guys on the Pistons team that said, hey, we can't get these guys off the floor. You can't play the hang around game in the playoffs. You can't do it. In my opinion, you have to be able to dominate for 48 minutes. And you also have to be able to take advantage of a team, in my opinion, going into that halftime locker room that looked absolutely dazed and confused, right? And you didn't do that in the third quarter. And you allowed for Detroit to go on this 30-3 run, and you also allowed for them to now break a record for themselves. The number here is 6,540 days without a home playoff win for the Detroit Pistons before their Game 2 victory. But as I've been saying, the theme is going to be an absolute slugfest, and that's what Chris Haynes on NBA TV spoke about following the game between Detroit and Orlando.
After going 0-5 from the field, Paulo Banchero finished with a scoreless third quarter, with the Pistons outscoring the Magic by 22 in that stretch. Chris, what changed for Detroit to pull away like that?
Yeah, that was it was really the third quarter. They outscored the Magic 38-16 in that frame. And that was really the ball game right there. But no, they came out with an intensity and some urgency in that quarter that ultimately got them the victory. And I want to talk about the aggressive nature, especially on the defensive end for these two teams. This was a old school Eastern Conference slugfest, 98-83. Mm-hmm. Like that type of a score is at the end of
2004 score.
Yeah, exactly. And then the block shots. We saw contests. The Detroit Pistons had 11 block shots. Orlando had 7 on their end. So 18 block shots in one game. You don't see that too often. So that just speaks to a level of physicality and toughness that these teams are playing with. And I wouldn't be surprised if I see this series go the distance, because they're all leaving it out there. It's not going to be pretty. This is not going to be a pretty series. But if you're into guys going at it hard, a real physical contest, this is the series to watch.
So to me, it feels like this is an Orlando Magic team that is with all the smoke, right? I think they're not scared of this Pistons team. And I'll ask you guys that here in a minute. I think that either A, you got too over anxious in winning Game 2, or you just, again, simply did not take advantage of the fact that there was blood in the water. And that's going to be the difference between winning and losing this series. But here was Paulo Banchero post-game following the loss, talking about what happened particularly in that third quarter.
Tonight.
What'd you say?
What changed after halftime in the third quarter when Detroit took the lead? What do you think led to that?
I think we just got a little disorganized offensively, and they started to try to speed us up with ball pressure and just, not letting us get into what we were trying to get into. But I think it was more so us being, not being on the same page to start the quarter, and they just took full advantage.
So I said the Orlando Magic aren't scared of the Detroit Pistons. I truly believe that. I don't think they're scared of this team. But I'll ask you as Orlando Magic fans, does this Detroit Pistons team scare you at all? Listen, I'm not taking anything away from Detroit. This is a 60-win team. This is a team that has bullied a lot of their opponents throughout the course of the regular season. I mean, this is a team to where defensively they remind you maybe of the 80s Pistons, those 2000s Pistons that went to 6 Eastern Conference Finals, won an NBA title, hanging their hat on defense. It seems like this Detroit Pistons team is hanging their hats on the defensive side of the ball as well. And you also have, in my opinion, a top 15 to 20 player in the league in Cade Cunningham, and maybe a top 25 to 30 player in the league in Jalen Duren. And honestly, that's it. Honestly, that's it to me. I really don't see anything else. I mean, at least in the last 2 games in which we've seen, right? Jalen Duren really hasn't been a factor in this series. In game 1, sometimes I think you've forgotten that he was on the floor, and he only had 11 and 9 in game 2. This was JB Bickerstaff. I want to play this for you. This was JB Bickerstaff after the game when he says that, hey, listen, when we play Detroit Pistons basketball, I'll put this team up against anybody that you're bringing at us in the entire NBA.
Playoffs, they're not going to be easy, but you got to be consistent. And if you find that consistency and you have the talent level that we have, you're going to find your windows where you can extend leads, and then you get another stop and extend it more. So that's our focus. Again, we got a ton of respect for that team and how well they're coached and how they play. But again, if we play Pistons basketball, we feel like we can beat anybody.
But see, when he says that, I'm not seeing Detroit Pistons basketball to me, at least when it comes to the offensive end of the floor. And I think that's where many individuals, if you have been keeping up on social media or watching FanDuel or watching ESPN, NBA TV, listening to SiriusXM NBA, or listening to your favorite podcast, no matter what it is, the offensive side of the ball seems to be troubling for the Detroit Pistons, right? It doesn't seem to me, outside of Cade, that they have enough firepower not only to win this series, but to really make a deep playoff run, right? And I think that, the last time we looked at this series, I argued that maybe when you look at maybe the 5 best players on the floor, Orlando may have 3 out of the 5. But on Ryan Russillo's podcast, the argument may be, if you want to extend it to 6 players, Orlando has 4 of the top 6 players in this entire series between both rosters.
The Magic have 4 of the top 6 players in this series.
Whoa. Let's do it. Exercise. Let's game it out.
If they're playing the way up to the way that we think they should be playing, Jalen Duren was horrific, but I'm still putting him in there, obviously. So it's him and Cade. Who on the Pistons are you taking over Franz, Paulo, Suggs, and Bane?
Let's just do it right now. So Cade's the first. Who's number 2? We're back on the Paulo train.
Just throw Paulo. I'm not gonna. There's no order for me. It's just if it's the 4 if we're talking 6 players in the series, top 6 players, the Magic have 4 of them.
So who would be the 3rd best player on the Magic?
It's probably. Bane was their best player this year.
I think Bane, even as good as Paulo was in Game 1, Bane has been the better player. So Suggs is the 3rd best player. I don't know that we can round up this hard on Franz because he looked. I still don't even know that he looked. I think more of the minutes looked bad than looked. So who's the 3rd best player in Detroit?
It's certainly not Tobias Harris. It's probably Asar,
who they want to bench when they're behind.
So if you want to say Asar is their 3rd best player, that's a huge problem for Detroit.
Are we overreacting?
Yes, we probably are. The Pistons are 9.5-point favorites in Game 2.
I can't believe that number. That's more than I thought it would be. Who's winning the series?
I think it's DraftKings. I think has it at. I think the Pistons are now like minus 160 or minus 170. It's way closer than it was obviously beforehand.
The lack of firepower and the fact that you may have 4 of the top 6 players between both rosters in this first round series, I think has to do 2 things. A, it has to make you feel good if you're the Orlando Magic, right? And B, you have to be able to then, if that's true, and many people are saying that, if they are, you have to be able to take advantage of these opportunities then, right? Because this is what Brandon Jennings said on Gil's Arena, due to the lack of firepower that the Detroit Pistons have on the offensive side of the ball, it may be one of the big reasons why you can't count Orlando out of this first round series matchup.
What are your biggest takeaways from the Pistons Game 2 win over the Orlando Magic?
There's only so much fluff you can give the Magic to make them look good. I think JB went in there and talked to the team and had them really understanding the severity of being number one and not going down to a team like this, which, you know, I was thinking that the Magic had a chance to go up and solidify that series, but K showed up like the leader should, and I think that with K being able to command a good first game and a solid second game, Jalen Durden didn't show up the way he could have. I think Isaiah Stewart played some big minutes. Duncan Robinson played some big minutes. Thompson boy, he always going to do what he do as far as defense and being in the right spots. If they continue to do what they're doing as far as this game and they can proceed it and keep going, they'll clean it up. But the Magic got something to prove at this point. They just erratic now. I don't know what to say about them right now, because to lose to the Sixers the way they did, to beat the Hornets the way they did, and come in and win against Detroit Game 1, and then they look like a totally different team. Yeah. So I think they just need to clean up the little things and just show up and play hard, because sometimes they had some lapses where they didn't play hard. They didn't look like a cohesive unit. But you got to give credit to the Pistons for showing up, for sure.
You got to imagine after tricking that first game, this Pistons squad, toughness, grit, 160 games this season, they were going to get it back together. But impressive third quarter run, 30-3. Start that third quarter. Mr. B, when you look at this game, what biggest takeaways from the Pistons Game 2 win?
I mean, the Pistons didn't approach this second game like they did the first. Looked like they were comfortable with getting the first win, which is, you definitely want to get at least one win on the road. Cade definitely, he did his thing. Of course, that's definitely what he's going to do. But, man, I can't really count Orlando out in this because of their struggling of scoring from Detroit Pistons. Cade is their only main scorer, and Duren and Tobias, they haven't really been stepping up too much for them in the first two games. So, Cade had 37, but I just feel like Game 3, which is an early game Saturday, which is at 1 p.m., 10 a.m. our time. But, that's going to say a lot, too, being in Orlando, being on the road. It's kind of a setup game, too, for Detroit to lose. So, I don't know. I got to see what the other All-Star players going to do on Detroit, because they have trouble scoring. So, and in the playoffs, you're going to need somebody else to be able to score. Especially, I mean, even if they get out of this series with Orlando, right? I mean, your next series, you're going to need another scorer, somebody else.
We've been saying that all year.
You know what I'm saying? They don't have that extra scorer that can help Cade. So I don't know. Like, my jury's not out on Orlando right now. I got to see what Game 3 is like, because it's an early game and it's that kind of a setup game.
Yeah, I for sure think it's going to be a tough series this first round for Detroit. Game 3, Paulo got to adjust like Cade did. He got to show us if he's a superstar or what he's going to be in this league, really. And, Orlando played like they've been playing all year. They look like they got their identity first game, and then second game, they look like where Orlando at. Mm-hmm. And for Cade, he stepped up. He showed why he's a superstar in this league, took control of the game. Pistons basketball, defense, get physical with him. And Orlando, and Wagner, if he's going to be the co-star, he got to step up too. You can't disappear in the game. He had 12 points or something like that. If he I don't know if he got paid yet, but
he's got his bread.
So you got to step up. Bang, all of you guys. Coming in, I thought Orlando would have been in front of Detroit. They should have been. They would have. I thought they would have been like ranked 5 or 4, somewhere in that range. So it's not one of those cakewalk teams that Detroit is playing. And if they get past this, I think this is a tough challenge for them. But next round gonna be Cleveland. So they got to figure it out. Duren got to step up. Tobias Harris been in this game. He got to try to give you more than It's every day 14, 13.
Yeah, they're gonna need some 20 points.
They're gonna need somebody got to get it. One of them role players got to win at least 2 games for them. Got to hit a couple threes. Got to be like Luke Kennard out there.
Because who would they see next? You said Cleveland? Cleveland out of Toronto?
Or the Raptors.
No, I mean, no. Yeah, no, that's
Now, even though that may be true, right, and I agree, there's absolutely no reason as to why you can count Orlando out of this first round series matchup. I don't even think you can count them out of game 3. And we'll talk about that in a moment. I have Orlando winning game 3 as the series is shifting back to the Kia Center. The name of the game, we talked about it at the top. He who's making the baskets as a team is going to win the game. Orlando has to be able to put the ball in the basket. We understand what this series is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. But we have seen also in these first 2 games, whichever team gets hot, we saw Orlando do that in the first quarter of game 1. We see it in the third quarter of game 2 from the Detroit Pistons. Whichever team gets hot, the rhythm and flow is going to be there. Then they're going to be tough to deal with throughout the remainder of the game. Because now, offensively, having that confidence is going to be able to dictate now how the game goes. And it's going to be to the advantage of whichever team is now shooting better from the field than the other, right? So you score 46 points if you're Orlando, and also Detroit as well, because it was tied going into the locker room. Through the first 24 minutes, you're tied at 46. In the third quarter, you can't go almost 8 minutes without a basket. And the only basket that you got was from Desmond Bane. You know, that 3-point shot that he got on this historic 30-3 run, which I can't stop hearing about from NBA pundits, right? So Detroit, again, I want to give them a lot of credit here. Looking at the stats, they limited you to 29% shooting from the field and 16 points in that third quarter, right? And that made me just want to go, what the fill in the blank, right? Makes you want to throw your TV out of the room, makes you want to throw your phone or just punch a hole in your wall because you know that this Orlando Magic team is better than that, right? But as Brandon Jennings stated, you do got to give the Detroit Pistons credit. For the game, they held Orlando to 33% and 8 for 32 from beyond the arc. They dominated the glass by a final of 57-42. They also blocked 11 shots, and a lot of those they did in the first half. So that's kind of what restores this now to a best-of-5 series, right? And Paulo Banchero, he did admit that Detroit did do a great job on the defensive side of the ball, but it was also tough for this team not to have been able to knock down shots that he feels they would normally make on any other occasion.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got to give them credit. You know, I thought we had some good looks in the first half. They met us at the rim a few times, and, yeah, they brought the intensity on defense. But we got good looks, and, you know, nobody really had a great night shooting the ball. So not a game that you'd expect to win after looking at the stat sheet, but, you know, I would say it's nothing that's discouraging.
And for me, that is why I'm going to use the F word. The F word meaning frustrated, right? Because Orlando had a huge opportunity here to go up 2-0 in this series. But there's another F word in which it seems like guys such as DeMarcus, well, not DeMarcus Cousins is using because he doesn't want to use the F word meaning fraudulent. This Detroit Pistons team is not a fraudulent 1 seed. They've been able to put in the work, and he's talked about that. But it seems that DeMarcus and Chandler Parsons, for that matter, are saying that this looks to be a fraudulent 8 seed in the Orlando Magic. And we've argued this all season long. They're much better than what their record would indicate. And the Orlando Magic gave up, in my opinion, on a huge opportunity. Here's DeMarcus Cousins and Chandler Parsons.
Yeah, I agree with Boogie. I think Orlando is not a real 8 seed. This is a team that had high expectations, that's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the season. They've had some frustrating moments and some rumors about their head coach, and you know, Paulo goes out and Franz Wagner goes out, Jalen Suggs goes out. They've had a lot of stuff happen to them, and now they're starting to play pretty good basketball, and they showed that in that last game of the play-in. But this is going to be a long series. Look across the league right now. You got Portland, San Antonio's tied up.
Yeah.
Philly goes and gets one in Boston. Like, the league is talented, and there's not going to be it's not easy to sweep. Like, it's not easy just to have quick series as we're learning. So last night Orlando struggled. You're not going to win many games scoring 83 points. You're shooting 32% from the field goal. That has a lot to do with them not making a lot of outside shots. It also has a lot to do with Detroit's defense and the way they physically, defend you and make it really difficult for you. So again, they're going to be better. I think now with just getting one in Detroit was a huge sign for them. Now they get to go back home. And who could happen? Anything can happen. So this is going to be a long series. But again, like Boogie said, this isn't a real 8 seed. Like, this is a tough 8 seed.
They are
Detroit.
confusing. They outscored, by the way, the Magic 36-6 at one point in the third quarter. Because in the first half, you're like, uh-oh, this could be a game. Boogie, I'm going to start with you. 18 years, first home win. They are obviously the 1 seed, and the expectation is they come out of this series, no issues. Let me ask you this. The internet's got mixed feelings about the Pistons. Some call them fraudulent. It's a very harsh word, in my opinion. But what do you say to that?
I disagree. I think they've proven all year that they were the best team in the East. Consistency matters, health matters, and they proved all that this year from start to finish. So to call them fraudulent, a fraudulent number 1 seed is just unfair to them because they did the work and they proved it all year. But I will say I believe a team like Orlando is a fraudulent 8 seed, and what I mean by that is I think they're a lot better than being an 8 seed. They dealt with a lot of injuries. They dealt with a lot of ups and downs. Players and coaches not necessarily on the same page throughout the year, and they lacked a lot of consistency. But based off their talent, based off the roster and the talent that they have within that team, I think they're a lot better than an 8th seed. So. If anything, I think they're a fraudulent 8 seed. But as far as the Pistons go, I think they did everything they were supposed to do this season. They're here for a reason. And, this is the playoffs. It's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be losses. It's going to be wins. They're 2 games in. There's 1-1. I mean, it's still a lot of life left in this series. So to base it off of 1 game, 1 loss, I think that's a bit extreme and, kind of jumping the gun. But they're absolutely here for a reason.
So, all right, let's get to it. Orlando got punched in the face. They punched first. They got hit back. All right. It's tied 1-1. Now going back to the Kia Center. What is going to be the response from this team outside of their shooting? I think the thing that you're going to look at now is how they overall respond to a team punching them back. That is going to be the heads or tails of them winning this series and moving on, or losing and going home. Because those 12 minutes in that third quarter in game 2, on top of the fact that you only scored 83 points in game 2, that's a season low. It's kind of reminiscent of what we saw in your loss to Boston's C team, and also what we saw when you gagged away that 7-8 play-in matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers. But what's been the roller coaster ride that we have always talked about with this Orlando Magic team? Because as many times as they have had their issues where they have lost to lackluster teams, they've also shown most recently in games against Charlotte, game 1 against Detroit, that this can be a team that shows why there were people in the media and also people who just like sitting on bar stools, church pews, or at the water cooler around work saying that this Orlando Magic team could give anybody a scare in terms of possibly making the Eastern Conference Finals. So which team are we going to see now in game 3? Because this is a pivotal one for the Orlando Magic in terms of how the rest of this series may go for them, right? And even though I still have it going 7, I think that this is a must win for Orlando. Let me know if you agree with that here in the comments section. A lot of times we have seen, again, we talked about this just a couple of days ago, 7-game win streak, 6-game losing streak, 5-game win streak, 2-game losing streak. You can't afford to have that now because you're more in a box in this playoff series where it's you got the first to win 4 moves on, right? So Orlando can't afford to give up any more rope to this Detroit Pistons team in a series, to me, I feel is winnable, right? So this was Jamal Mosley following the game, and he talked about how he feels that this Orlando Magic team is not going to back down, and they understand who they are, and they are going to respond in this Game 3 matchup.
Yeah, that's just, we're not backing down. It's not who we are. And especially in a series like this, in a game like this, and, opponent like this, you're not backing down. They threw everything that they had, in that moment, and that, the aggression, the physicality, all the plays in the game. That's part of it, and we knew that was coming, and that's what we embrace it. And when we go to Orlando, we've got to just make sure we exceed it.
To me, I'm going to be honest with you. I hope that they don't back down. I hope that they do understand who they are. I hope that they are able to, quote unquote, flush this. Paulo Banchero talked about they can't flush away the fact that they gave up a 30-3 run, but hopefully they can flush away Game 2 and they can respond in Game 3 with a similar performance, a better performance than what we saw in Game 1, and move on to Game 3 going up 2-1 when the final buzzer sounds here in Orlando, right? And Orlando, give them all the credit in the world. They came into Detroit and did what they hoped to do. They split the series. They got one. You end up getting Game 1. And I think because of that and the energy in which you're going to get, I agree a lot with what Jeff Teague said. I think Game 3 may be advantage Magic here.
Bro.
Yeah.
I think, I ain't gonna lie though, you get a little boost of energy when you head back home. Yeah. Sleep in your own bed. Mm-hmm. You're used to these rims. I play 41 games here. I got the Magic winning Game 3. Like in a
dogfight?
Nah.
Belt?
Like belt. Like, cause what, that first playoff game back home, the energy be crazy, bro.
Yeah. Because it's even.
I'm
waiting on Bane to still have
and that's the game he gonna have. It's gonna be back home. He get to see his family. Probably got people came in town to see him.
Mm-hmm.
He gonna have a moment this third game. I'm looking like it might be.
I'm rolling.
Might be.
I hope it's a good series, man. I wish it could go back and forth for real.
Now, well said, Mook. D-Bane has not really played well in these playoffs. Like you said, he's probably their most important player right there with Paulo, especially from an offensive standpoint. He ain't gave them much, but yeah, we will see what's going on.
Now, I will admit, I do not think that you can win this series or win Game 3 if Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner are scoring under 20 points. I think that you're going to have to see Paulo be the same, if not better, than what he was in Game 1, where he had, I believe, 23 points, and he was just able to do whatever he wanted to do on the floor. But also in saying that, I don't think that you can be limited to 19 points or 18 points because you understand now Detroit's going to be throwing the entire kitchen sink at you. You have to be able to play with that breath of fresh air and that joy we saw you playing with in Game 1, right? Also, I think Franz Wagner is going to have to be the same way. What we saw from him in Game 1, where he scored 11 of his 19 points in the fourth quarter, being that clutch guy, he's going to need to have to do that again for the Orlando Magic. But I also do agree with Jeff Teague that Desmond Bane is going to need to have a big game as well. Look, he had 12 points on 2 of 11 shooting from the field in Game 2. In Game 1, he had 17, but was only 7 of 20 from the field. I think he's going to be due for a big game. I think Anthony Black is also going to have a big game for this Orlando Magic group. Jalen Suggs as well is also going to need to have a big game for this team. Everybody's going to need to have a big game, but I think it's going to have to start with Paulo, Franz, and Dez if they're going to want to win this Game 3. And I think that, as Jeff Teague said, as I've also stated, I think that the energy is going to be there inside the Kia Center. I hope you guys cheer loudly for this team and make it just very uncomfortable for this Detroit Pistons squad so that we can go up 2-1 in this series. We will certainly see what happens. Those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear yours as we continue to look at this series between Orlando and Detroit. We are certainly going to see what happens, but let's talk to now a couple of experts on both sides of the ball with Orlando and Detroit, respectively. We will talk to Coup Cahil of Locked On Pistons. He'll break it down for us on the Detroit side, and Jeff Turner of the Orlando Magic. He's an analyst for them on the FanDuel Sports Network. He'll give us the ins and outs from the Magic side as to where this series is and where it can potentially go. Let's welcome in both.
All
Our next guest is no stranger to the NBA playoffs, nor is he to the NBA Finals, as back in 95, he, Shaq, Penny, Nick Anderson, and the Orlando Magic made it to the NBA championship round. This year's Orlando Magic team looks to have their journey end with hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy. We welcome in Jeff Turner, Mr. Kapaya, here on this Magic Moment. Jeff, thank you as always, sir. How are you?
I am doing good. Looking forward to the Magic getting back home and hoping to get another win on Saturday.
Game 3 is certainly going to be controversial, and of course we're going to be talking about the first 2 games of this series ad nauseum. I just want to know from you, however, if I would have told you that the Orlando Magic would have this series tied at a game apiece heading back to Orlando for Game 3, just what would have been your initial reaction?
Well, I'm just really pleased that they have continued what we saw against Charlotte in the play-in game, right, in the 8-9 matchup to get to this point. We saw a team that came out with great intensity on the defensive end, great sense of urgency. And I think that's carried over into the series here so far in the first 2 games. Yeah, the Magic not coming out with a victory in Game 2, but I think that was a little bit more, just shot making and maybe the defensive effort by the Pistons. It wasn't a lack of urgency by the Magic. So I've really been pleased with that. Watching the guys, the attention to detail and the seriousness they've taken. This series so far. And so, anytime you're in a 7-game playoff series, you go on the road to start. Your goal is to at least get one, right? You get one, you split, and then now the home court, moves to you. So I think the Magic did exactly what they needed to do to flip that and give them a chance. They've been pretty good at home in the playoffs, so hopefully that continues.
The conversational piece of all this is something that I really do want to get into, because you've been in a playoff series in your playing days where you and the Magic were tied at a game apiece heading in to a very pivotal Game 3, most notably against the Chicago Bulls in 95. You guys win Game 1, they take Game 2, and many people had Chicago winning that series because his airness was returning from a hiatus. But we know how that ended. The good guys end up winning that series and head to the NBA Finals after defeating the Indiana Pacers. But what was the conversation like for you guys going back to Chicago in Game 3 after tying it up? And what should be the conversation for this Magic team as they head into a pivotal Game 3?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think, the great thing about the playoffs, the thing that makes it fun is it's the same opponent. So basically you're making small adjustments from game to game. You're watching a lot of film. You're going over every, there's so much detail. You're going over every play. So I think, the conversation is, I think it's probably going on based on what the comments we've heard out of the locker room. The guys, they understand what they did wrong. Coming, in Game 2, especially in that third quarter. Right. What it comes down to, RJ, is the amazing thing in the playoffs. Everything is magnified, right? So the attention to detail. Against the Detroit Pistons, you can't turn it over. They lead the league in points off turnovers. Right. You have to rebound the basketball. You can't give them second chance opportunities. That's a strength of theirs. And I think the team, based on the comments that I've read and interviews I've listened to, they understand that they just kind of, they had a moment there, which, whether it's a 6-minute stretch, a 3-minute stretch, whatever it is, it can get away from you in the playoffs very quickly.
Mr. Turner, if you had to define what has gone into this turnaround, because, hey, look, the final game of the regular season certainly wasn't one in which the Orlando Magic wanted in terms of how they wanted to end their regular season heading into the play-in round. And then you have a dud against the Philadelphia 76ers, and I think many fans and also analysts are on the edge of their seats saying, is the bottom really going to fall out with this team where they do not make the NBA playoffs? But Now we've seen the performance against the Charlotte Hornets and also the Game 1 win against the Detroit Pistons, and this just looks like a completely different team. What would you say, in your opinion, has gone in to the turnaround for this Magic group?
Yeah, I think you hit on a couple of the differences right away. The health thing is, you go back through the years. The team that's the healthiest going into the playoff usually has success, right? You've got to have all your pieces, and what that has led to is now a more consistent rotation. Jamal Mosley he's now with healthy bodies. Now he's got a 9-man rotation, right? And that's what we're seeing. The 5 starters that we expected at the beginning of the year, right. And then you've got a rotation player at pretty much each position coming off the bench. You get skill back coming off your bench with Anthony Black being healthy, and now Tristan Da Silva moving back to the bench with Franz Wagner returning. I think that's been a big key, obviously. And then, the other part of it that kind of goes along with it that you kind of alluded to is now there's a comfort level in who you're playing with on the floor. So that's a big key. And then the last one I would say is that for whatever reason, when you look back at that Boston game, the Magic did not respect their opponent. They looked down there and they didn't see Jaylen Brown, they didn't see Jason Tatum or Derek White, and they let down. And so especially on the defensive end, and I think what you're seeing, and I think it ultimately starts the value. Jalen Suggs' value to this team is where he begins to pick up his opponent, his matchup. If he's picking Cade Cunningham or whoever it is in the backcourt, or even if it's, Coach Mosley's using a lot more size on Cunningham, putting Franz or Paulo on him, where they pick him up, where they make him work. If you let teams just walk into their offense, which Magic were doing late in the season, you're going to struggle. But if you can put the kind of pressure that the team has been putting on Detroit and even Charlotte, when we saw that, you change the game. You make it. I think you put it in your favor if you're a Magic player, because that's the strength of the team.
Want to get your thoughts on a few players here, Mr. Turner, while we have the time. Want to start with Paulo Banchero. It's so great to see him leading this group. Now, I don't know if he can score less than 20 points and this team wins any more games in this series. He's certainly going to have to do better than the 18-point performance he had in Game 2. But you can see, it's very clear. He's playing a lot more free out there. It seems that his mind is clear and he's breathing a whole lot better when he's out there on the floor with his team. But just how much more do you think that this group needs from Paulo to win this series?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's got to score a little bit more. He's had opportunities. Obviously, the free throw line, right. But that's through the team. We got to do a better job. We got to get the ones that you got to knock down the ones that you're getting. But the other part of it is, I'm sitting there watching the game 2 the other night, and they got a lot of people, especially late in the clock. They're running people at him, and Paulo's making the right pass. The assists are there, and that's really all you can do. I think he's playing, and he's got a nice combination of being selfish when he has to, and aggressive, and then letting what they do defensively kind of dictate what he does as well. And what I mean that if they double team, if they're running, clogging the paint, he's doing a great job of facilitating. But everybody's going to have to score more. That always that has been a problem for the Magic in the playoffs, is you got to find a way to score. And I lay it on everybody. Desmond Bane's got to do better, obviously. And Franz has got to pick it up a little bit. Those are your 3 main guys, along with Jalen Suggs. We just have to have more consistency out of them.
Your head coach and now analyst with the Orlando Magic, Brian Hill, said that he loves Paulo Banchero and the star in which he is, but he does feel that Orlando is going to need Franz Wagner if they really want to make a dent in these NBA playoffs. You're going to need both on the floor, and Franz Wagner being an integral piece to all that. Just what have you seen from him so far, and what have you enjoyed?
Well, I think, the big thing is, he just gives you another weapon on the floor. It's funny. Again, the team is still trying to figure out what they have. What we see is we see different guys stepping up at different times. Franz, when Paolo's off the floor, kind of stepping up. When Paolo's on the floor, becoming more of a cutter. And then he becomes more of a facilitator a little bit. But I think the big thing with having, a healthy Franz Wagner on the floor that probably is underappreciated is defensively, this team is better. Franz is a very good defender. Right. And then you throw him out there, and with his size and his ability to guard multiple positions, I talked about him guarding Cade at times, putting a bigger player on, Cade Cunningham. You look at the size that the Magic are able to throw out there, the length with, Paolo and Wendell and Franz all at 6'10", and then you get in your backcourt and Bane and Suggs, coming at 6'5" and 6'6". That just it makes it that end of the floor a little bit better. It gives you a lot of options defensively, whether they're switching or trapping, because they can throw so much size at Detroit.
I kind of want to give a shout out here to Wendell Carter Jr. I feel like he's not getting enough love from Orlando Magic fans. He's been healthy for this group this season, and he's been doing a good job as you can against a physical Detroit Pistons team in the bigs, in which they bring to the table in a playoff series. Just what have you enjoyed from Dell this year, and also in the first two games in which we've seen him against Detroit?
Well, I think in the first round, what we've seen so far is, you look at Detroit and they have two all-stars. Cade Cunningham is a load, and, we're doing the best we can. But the other guy, Jalen Duren, has, not really matched his, season performances, he was a double-double guy, almost a 20-point, 10-rebound a game guy. And I think a lot of that is, Wendell has done a nice job on Jalen, keeping him, for the most part off the glass. Got away a few times in game two. So I think that, Wendell is, from a position defensive standpoint, and a guy that covers up mistakes that, maybe guys make out front. Probably, when you're watching, maybe you don't pick up on it a lot of times, but it's there if you really isolate on it. And, the other part of it is the scoring. Now, he didn't score, a lot in game two, which the Magic are going to need him. But I think he's been very aggressive, really sealing, getting deep post-ups, taking advantage of that. And obviously, he's back to rebounding on the offensive glass like he did early in the season.
Now, is there an X factor that you have for this Magic team? I mean, outside of Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bane and Paolo and Franz, we understand that, this team is going to need for them to, be aggressive and be successful on the floor if this team wants to, win game three and, ultimately win this series. But is there another player on this Magic group where you're saying this guy needs to have a big game as well in order for the Magic to be able to, rise to where they want to rise?
Yeah, I think it's not one guy, but I would lump four guys in, and that's our bench. I just, you look at from a scoring standpoint, I just think that Anthony Black, Tristan da Silva, Goga Batadze, and Jamal Cain, those are the guys that right now are in the 9-man rotation coming off the bench. Right. And it's hard. Their minutes, are limited as well, but those guys have, really, if they could reach another level, scoring, whether it's in transition, knocking down some big threes when they're in there, that would help.
You've talked about it and touched on it a little bit here and there throughout our conversation in terms of what Orlando needs to do better coming out of game two and going into game three and throughout the duration of this series. But just give us your keys to victory for Orlando as they head back to the Kia Center, hoping to go up 2-1 in this series.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you talked about at the beginning. I mean, you play Detroit. You've got to be a low turnover team as best you can. I think we had 18 against them. A big stretch, 6 of them in that third quarter. If you can keep that number down around 13, 14, they're going to force. They're aggressive. They're going to force turnovers, but keep that down. I think you've got to win the rebounding game. They're just so physical on the glass. We did that in game 1. I think that's important. Those are the big areas, I think. I think from a standpoint of we've done a decent job. They're much like the Magic. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. You got to know where Duncan Robinson is, obviously, at all times. But, if you can win the turnover and the rebounding game, and make your free throws, I really think that those 3 areas are the keys for the Magic to win against the Pistons.
Final one for you, Mr. Turner, before we let you go, man, and thanks as always for giving us just a couple of moments of your time. I always enjoy these conversations in which we have once a month. Always want to end it on a fun one because you always deliver great stories for us here on This Magic Moment. When you guys were having your run back in 1995 towards the NBA Finals to face Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets, you guys went through the who's who of the Eastern Conference. And, I forgot that you guys were the ones who closed the Boston Garden back in 95. You defeat Jordan and the Bulls in the second round. Then you have a back-and-forth 7-game series against the Indiana Pacers before ultimately making the NBA Finals. Is there a series during that run that you enjoyed the most?
Oh, I think it was, for me, it was the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers. Because, it was one of those series where, we had home court advantage, and each team won on their home court. Nobody won on the opposing court, and the games were just fabulous. Just very intense, especially games. Games 1 through 5. Game 6, we went to Indiana. It kind of got away from us a little bit. They won, and I think they felt like they had momentum coming back to our place, and kind of celebrated a little bit. But Game 7 in the old Orlando Arena, we jumped out on them and just basically blew them out. I tell people, I don't know that I've ever been in a building as loud as that building was that night when we clinched the Eastern Conference Championship to go to the NBA Finals. It was just a fun night, but just a great series. A lot of adjustments by the coaches. Brian Hill and Larry Brown kind of scheming against each other. It was big. Indiana was big with the Davis brothers and Rick Smith and obviously Reggie Miller making big shots. But we had just with Shaq and Penny and everything. It was just. I would encourage you, if you ever get a chance and you can find them, just to go back and watch some of those games, because the shot making in those games was just unbelievable. Both teams, shooting well over 50% for the series. It was just really some high-level basketball.
Without a doubt, that's a fun one. Anytime you're able to go into a 7-game series and have such back and forth as you did against the Indiana Pacers, I think this series between the Magic and the Pistons is going to be equally as fun. These two teams, almost a mirror image of each other. Jeff Turner, Orlando Magic legend, so gracious to give us just a couple of moments of his time here on This Magic Moment as he breaks down Game 3 for us, which will be in Orlando at 1 o'clock. Mr. Turner, thank you as always, sir, for the time. Hopefully we're able to do this again sometime down the road.
All right, RJ, thank you.
It is our favorite time of year here in the Florida area, the NBA playoffs, and we love being able to get breakdowns from enemy territory, although this guy right here is a friend, as he's the host of Locked On Pistons, Coup Cahil, who is going to give us the latest on the Pistons and their outlook on this series. My brother, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We appreciate the time. And before we get into this series, I just want to get your overall view on the Pistons season. I mean, was this expected to go from a lower seed last year to the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference? Was this kind of the outlook that the fan base and maybe even the team had going into this year?
No, this was very much a surprise. This was not. There was a lot of people thought they could improve, but going from 6th to 1st and getting 60 wins was not seen. This is the second straight year that their president of basketball operations, Trajan Langdon, has come out midway through the year and said, "Yeah, I didn't expect us to be this good this fast. We've had to adjust." And it's been that's a great problem to have. It's been a great development. But no, I don't think many people at all saw this coming.
Now, I think a lot of that does have to do with, your star guard, Cade Cunningham. We all knew he was a bad cat, but as Rip Hamilton said, this guy is healthy, he's leading his team, and he's dominating his matchups each and every game this season and going into the first round against the Magic. Just talk about the energy boost he's given the organization and the city, because, it's been a while, in my opinion, since the Pistons have been able to wrap their arms around a star guy of his caliber.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. I think having a face of the team, the face of a franchise, face of really like a sports town. The Lions have gotten better, and obviously they were a big hot story and still are. But the Pistons have not had a face of a franchise, a guy that can stand up as like a face of a city in nearly 20 years. And Cade definitely has become that. He matches the city's attitude. He's very humble, but also very confident. Right. He works extremely hard, a very talented player. He's gotten so much better year over year over year. Even if you just look at his box score numbers from this year to last year, it made it seem like he was similar this year, but he's a much better player this year than he was last year. So much smarter of a basketball player. And the Pistons definitely were lucky to get him lucky to win his draft lottery and to draft him. But it definitely starts with him being able to have that guy and have a superstar type of player. That's the hardest part of building a team. You can get all the role players, you can get all the side pieces, you can get all of that and have a fine team, but you really can't get to that next step unless you have that guy, and the Pistons were lucky to get that.
Now, every great number 1 guy needs to have a strong number 2 alongside of him, and it's surely been that of one. Jalen Duren was an all-star. He was named to the all-star team this year. Just talk about his maturity as well and what the Pistons saw in him when they elected to draft him and what you've thought about him since he's been in Detroit.
Yeah, Jalen Duren took a major jump this year that, again, not a lot of people saw coming. Not just he's improved a little bit as a defender. It's still not his strongest place in the game, but he's gotten better in that regard. But the offensive leap that he took this year during the season was something that no one really saw coming. He flashed some of this on-ball creation, some of these drives to the basket in previous years, but to go from flashing it every now and then to it just becoming a core part of the Pistons offense, and again, becoming a core part of an offense that won 60 games, not becoming a core part of an offense that, is winning 44, 45 games. He was directly impacting the Pistons being able to win 60 games for the first time in 20 years. So he's made such an incredible leap. I believe he was the youngest player in his draft when the Pistons drafted him. So it was known that he was going to, not that he was super raw when he was drafted. He actually had a fine rookie season, but it was known that it was going to take a few years for him to really develop and get him to the spot where he wanted to get to. And he feels like he's not even at his peak yet. So he's only 22 years old. So the season that he's had has been incredible. I'm sure we'll talk about the playoff series. He has not had a good playoff series. Orlando's done a good job against him. But overall, on the season, he's had an incredible year that might get him on the All-NBA team.
One more for you before we do get into this first-round playoff matchup between Orlando and Detroit. Give me the vibe and the energy in the city of Detroit when it comes to this Detroit Pistons team, because it has been a long time, as we said, about Cade Cunningham and the fans being able to wrap their arms around a superstar of his caliber. It's been a while since this fan base and the city's been able to wrap their arms around this team because they've had many down years. But now you're seeing Ben Wallace, you're seeing Rip Hamilton as well there in the arena, Jalen Rose, also Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars is making appearances there as well. So just to see the legends of yesteryear and the legends of Pistons past coming there to support the team this year, as well as the other fans and supporting them in the organization as well. Just what has the energy been like when it comes to Detroit being able to cheer for the Pistons once again?
I mean, Ben being around the team, he had started working closer with the team and becoming a real part of the organization. I would say like around 4 years ago, I believe the Cade draft was the year he really started to come back around as a part of the organization. And every single time he shows up on the Jumbotron, I feel like they could show him every quarter of every single game, and each time he gets the same ovation from the fans. He is absolutely beloved in the city, and having him around in the arena, he talks with Stu, he talks with Duren. Like, these guys very much respect him, so I think that's huge. But having a lot of the other legends around, a lot of the other guys that won championship with the Pistons. I almost said championship, should have been 2 in 05, but they have experience winning. It's such a big deal for these guys. They look up to them. They respect them. And so it's cool to see the Pistons not playing in Auburn Hills, even though the Palace was absolutely amazing, but to see them downtown in Detroit and to see all the fans come out to the city and have all these legends in the city, in that arena, is very dope. It's very much dope. And I record with Lindsey Hunter every week, few times every week for our podcast. And he was telling us about how he was behind actually the Magic bench with Jalen Rose, and they were yapping at the Magic bench the whole time. Him and Mosley were going back and forth all the time. And I thought he was joking a little bit, but a clip just came out today. I just saw a 50-second clip of him just going back and forth with Mosley and the Magic players. Just a funny environment, a fun thing. It wasn't nothing to. I think Mosley was enjoying it as well, but it just points to like all the legends, all the people familiar with the city that have history with the city. This team has given a lot of people a reason to be around, to support, and to show their presence with the team again, and it's been very fun to see.
Now, I mean, let's get into this first round playoff series because it certainly has been exciting. I just want to know your overall view of this first round matchup, because I do believe that Orlando's been so up and down this year that many probably would have thought that Detroit would be up 2-0 going to Orlando for game 3 and 4. But I mean, these two teams, I got to admit, Coup, they damn near mirror each other when it comes to the defensive side of the ball and their physicality, and that wanting to be the theme of this series overall. So just what have you thought of these first two games?
Yeah, I was very much shocked after game 1. I did not expect them to drop game 1. The Magic deserved to win that one. They outplayed the Pistons. But I was shocked by it. The Pistons, I thought, played their worst game of the year. Wow. Jalen Duren, I thought, played his worst game of the year. It was very shocking to see. Even their defense didn't look like the defense we had seen from the Pistons all year. Game one was very much a shock, but also a punch in the mouth to Detroit. That Detroit feels like they are the much better team, but it was a punch in the mouth in regards to if you take us lightly, we play physical enough. We will play hard enough to where if you take us lightly, we will take a game and we will try to take the series from you. So I think that kind of woke them up after game 1. Like, okay, this team, because a lot of talk going into the series was, does the coach even want to be there? Do the players even want to play for the coach? Do the players like each other? Do they even want to be here? So I after talking with some people around the organization, there was a feeling maybe of, we're the 1 seed. Is this, how much do they even really want? That kind of feeling. I feel like the Magic absolutely punched them in the mouth and let them know that's not going to be the case. And then in the second game, I thought the Pistons, even still, that third quarter run was the vintage Pistons we've seen this year. But even outside of that, I still don't think they've played their absolute best yet in this series. It was good to see, from a Pistons perspective, them be able to look like them for 8 minutes and really just take off because of those 8 minutes. But the Pistons still feel like that they can play much better than they've played. And they feel like they've recovered from that punch in the mouth in game 1. But it certainly was a shock after game 1 that they had dropped it that way.
Now, one thing that I am very surprised by is just that, offensively with these Detroit Pistons, it seems to me that the Orlando Magic are saying, listen, Cade's going to be Cade. We understand that. But if we can kind of shut everybody else down here, we may have a good shot at winning a couple games, potentially even winning this series. And then you see after game 2, you have a lot of individuals on podcasts or on major networks saying that maybe this offense is a problem for the Detroit Pistons in terms of them being able to get shots for people outside of Cade Cunningham. I just want to know from you, being there, watching the offense this entire season, and also in these playoffs after 2 games. Do you think that Detroit's going to be able to solve these offensive problems in which they've had after 2 games?
I think a lot of the talk about the Pistons offense is, I think the general feeling is that it is misplaced because I think the overall feeling is that if the Pistons were playing the Cavs, the Knicks, the Celtics, then the feeling would be, okay, these are fair to point out about the offense, that they probably won't be able to play this way and beat that team. Whereas the general feeling amongst the Pistons is their offense does need to be better, but they believe their defense is so good and that the Magic's offense won't be good enough to score against their own defense, where they feel like the conversation shouldn't be, can the Pistons score enough points? It's, can Orlando score enough against this team's defense that's been one of the best in the league? That's the general. They feel like the situation or the argument or the discussion is flipped, whereas it should be more about, yeah, the Pistons' offense is not looking great, but this defense that they have is one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 5 years. Why are we not instead talking about how is the opposing team going to score against them? So I think that's where the feeling. I think if they make it out of the series, I think they will. But if they can make it out of the series, I think that becomes a much, much bigger and much more fair thing to point out about the Pistons in the next round. But I think a lot of people believe that the Pistons defense will be enough to carry them through this round.
Now, for you, with this series shifting now to Orlando, I've been on the record saying I think this is a pivotal Game 3 for both teams, and I think that maybe the team who wins Game 3 could potentially go on and win the series. In your opinion, is it a must-win, this Game 3 for Detroit?
I think that I wouldn't say it's a must-win, but I do agree with you that I think this Game 3 will most likely end up being the most pivotal game of the series. I think going back to Orlando for Game 3, if the Pistons are able to walk into Orlando and start off on another run or take a game in Orlando or win by double digits in Orlando, I think that they start to be able to really – I think after Game 2, there's still a level of, from the Pistons side of, okay, we just proved we're the 1 seed. We handled their punch in Game 1. We should be set now. Like, this is why we are the 1 seed and they're the 8 seed. But from Orlando, it's, look, we split on the road. We did our job. They took us here, but we're going back home. If the Pistons can knock that out and win in Game 3, I think that really does something to Orlando Magic team that doesn't appear to have been the closest all year, and a team that seems to fall back on bad habits when something's go awry. So I think it could be huge for the Pistons, but also I think it's even bigger for the Magic, because if the Magic right now, after talking with some people in Detroit, the feeling around the team is Game 1, we just played bad. We didn't play a good game. Game 2, we played our basketball. If we just play our basketball, we should be fine. We handled their punch. They won't be able to handle ours. If they go into Game 3 and Orlando responds with, no, that wasn't just a fluke Game 1, we actually are here and you will have a problem, I think that starts to put a little bit more seeds of doubt in the Pistons. Like, okay, we are the 1 seed, but does that really even matter at this point? Like, is this team actually able to hang with us? Is this team actually able to beat us here? I think it's more important for the Magic to kind of set in that tone, because if the Pistons win Game 3, I think it just gives them even more confidence, even more reason to believe, yeah, that Game 1 was just us not playing well. It was a fluke, but we should be in good hands moving forward. This team can't play with us. So if Orlando can beat them in Game 3, I think that really does a huge thing for Orlando and Detroit's psyche.
How big of a Game 3 does Jalen Duren need to have for this Detroit Pistons team? I mean, just in terms of his confidence as well as the team confidence as well, because, Cade's been doing his thing, but they are looking for somebody else really to help there with the scoring charge. Tobias Harris has, done his thing out there for the last couple of games, but I do believe that this team's really going to be looking for Jalen Duren to have a big game at some point.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely need Duren to figure it out. I think out of all the things that have happened throughout the 2 games, the one aspect that the Magic have had the most impact on in the Detroit Pistons is absolutely the play of Jalen Duren. They've done a great job. In Game 1, they loaded up on him on all of his drives. They met him early on his short rolls to the basket. They sent multiple bodies on his rolls. They forced him to be a facilitator, try to read the defense as a passer, and he just wasn't able to do it. In Game 2, he was a little bit better as a passer. He found a star and some backdoor cuts with the Magic coming up on some of his rolls. He found Duncan for a 3. But even as a scorer, he still is not able to really get it going. Wendell has done a good job. I know he fouled out, but Wendell's done a really good job being physical with them. I think this is one of the more shocking parts from the Pistons' perspective is that Duren is not one of these players like when you talk about playoff droppers that are, they can't handle physicality because they're soft players. Duren is one of the strongest players in the league and has played super physical. That's his game. So it's been super shocking to see that maybe it's not the physicality, but it seems like that he struggles with the physicality of the playoffs to fight through it and still get his offense off. So it's been very shocking to see him struggle this much. The Magic have done a great job trying to take him out the game. But the Pistons definitely need him to step up and have a big game. They believe if he can have a big game, they can win almost any game they play in these playoffs. As long as they get another scorer next to Cade and Duren, they believe they're almost unstoppable. So, and it's been again, like I said, very shocking to see how much the Magic have affected him so far through 2 games.
Now, break it down for us. I mean, as we go into Game 3, just your keys to victory for the Detroit Pistons to take down the Orlando Magic on Saturday in this Game 3 matchup.
I think the main takeaways or the main things I would say for the Pistons, and I would say, one, they have to keep Ausar Thompson on the floor. He's gotten into foul trouble in the first half. I think that allowed Orlando back into the game after the Pistons' heavy start to Game 2. Ausar came back and instantly got into foul trouble, and Orlando was able to score in that second quarter. He stayed at 3 fouls in the second half, and they kind of took off on them in the second half, and Ausar was a big part of that. So having him on the floor and his defense, I think, is just game-breaking, and they need to keep him on the floor and play him minutes. That's one. 2, you saw a lot of this in Game 2, and I know this is a strategy of Detroit. I'm interested to see if Orlando goes away from this, if they try to find a way to attack this, but continue to force the Magic to beat you with Paulo ISOs. They kept the ball they try to keep the ball out of Franz's hands. I know Franz isn't 100% anyways. But in this Game 2, they switched a lot. They allowed Duncan Robinson to switch on the Paulo. They allowed these size mismatches to switch out on Paulo, but they would back up, and they're basically daring him into or baiting him into take pull-ups. You're not going to go to the basket every time. You like to take pull-ups. Take these pull-ups, we'll live with that. And in Game 1, he hit a lot of post fadeaways. He hit a lot of pull-up jumpers, and you kind of just have to dap him up and say, good job. We'll take the L there. And then in Game 2, he wasn't really able to get any of those going and allowed the Pistons to get out and going. I think the Pistons look at this. This is why you've seen a lot of Ausar and Desmond Bane. Bane is their high-volume three-point shooter. He's the one that can game break these games from a math equation standpoint. He's the guy on the Magic that can just be, we'll hit more threes than you. He hits 6 threes. Pistons don't have someone that can do it, and you just lose the math game. So take him away. Don't allow any kickouts. Don't allow any threes, and allow Paulo to play ISO and see if he's willing to go to the basket every single time. He wasn't able to do that as much in Game 2. I think Detroit will continue to do that, and if they can have success with that and not give up threes to Desmond Bane, who has not had a great start to the series, you expect him to shoot better. I know he's gotten a few open looks as well. Expect him to shoot better at home. If they can take some of those threes away and keep it more of an ISO mid-range game for Paulo, I think they feel good about their chances.
All right, cool. I have really enjoyed this conversation, my man. And as always, before we let you go, just let the listeners know here in Jacksonville and beyond just where they can find you and your great work.
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Coup Cahil, and you can find the podcast Locked On Pistons, whatever podcast platform you listen to, and you can also find it over on YouTube at Locked On Pistons.
It is going to be an exciting Game 3 in Orlando between Detroit and the Magic, and I think that this series is going to go all 7 games, and this will not be the last time we speak to one Mr. Coup Cahil. Coup, thank you so much again for doing this, bro. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do this sometime again soon to break down probably one of these games coming up in the playoff matchup.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
A huge thank you to both Coup Cahil as well as Jeff Turner for giving us great insight to both teams, breaking down Game 3 and the first 2 games of this series. Orlando cannot afford to lay down. I still believe that there is blood in the water when it comes to this Detroit Pistons team. Let's see if Orlando is able to take advantage of it as now the series shifts back to Orlando. You're able to sleep in your own bed, get some home cooking. Hopefully you're now able to get in the groove and get a huge Game 3 win, which in my opinion is a must win for this group. Thanks again to Coup Cahil and Jeff Turner, as well as Thomas Kelly, for making it all happen behind the scenes. I'm RJ Saunders. We do thank you again for listening to this Magic Moment. Make sure to like and subscribe to 1010XL Magic as we continue to break down this first round series matchup. Go Magic, and we'll talk again following Game 4.